Then Minister of Home Affairs Aaron Motsoaledi had established the 9-member Electoral Reform Consultation Panel. It was established in terms of the Electoral Amendment Act passed in 2023 to investigate and make recommendations after, with regard to the potential reforms of the electoral system for the election of the National Assembly and the election of the provincial legislatures. In November, Minister Dr. Schreiber gave the National Assembly the latest update so far on the process led by the panel.
That process is now well underway with public engagements and other parts of that process being rolled out. That panel will then make recommendations which will also come to this House. And it's only at that stage, once this process has concluded, that we can really engage on the substance of whether or not these changes will be made.
Part of the functions and powers enjoined by the panel is the independence from any political influence, among others.
The process that's being undertaken by this Electoral Reform Panel demands the utmost independence. And I have made it clear throughout this process that there is actually nothing more fundamental for our democracy than questions around the electoral system. And therefore, while an independent process is underway, it would be completely inappropriate for any of us to get ahead of that.
While the civil society groups have raised certain concerns about the formation of the panel, citing potential biasness in relation to particular members of the panel, but others support the exploration for electoral reforms.
The Organization Undoing Tax Abuse strongly supports electoral reform aimed at strengthening democracy in South Africa. OUTA's vision aligns with the guiding principles articulated in the Electoral Reform Consultation Panel's discussion paper, which emphasizes inclusivity, fairness, accountability, as well as transparency. Electoral reform is a pivotal opportunity to redesign South Africa's electoral system for a fairer inclusion of independent candidates.
For others, there are justifiable expectations to see their report and recommendations aimed at reforming the country's electoral system.
There are good reasons to look forward to the panel recommendations, especially because recently South Africans are voting in a manner that demonstrates that we no longer want a single party dominance in our legislatures. We hope also that the recommendations will feed into the national dialogue that is much anticipated in a way that demonstrates that the right to stand for public office belongs to individual South African citizens and not just political parties. One other issue to look forward to has to do with political party funding, which is so pervasive in these days in light of corruption accusations.
Some of the political parties under the Government of National Unity expressed their support for the proposed changes.
The Democratic Alliance's policy about electoral reforms was adopted at a previous Federal Congress of the party, and it says in short that we do support the introduction of a mixed member proportional system. In other words, a system where the country is demarcated into constituencies which elect some of the members of parliament, with the remaining MPs being appointed from compensatory list so that the overall composition of parliament will still be proportional.
Parliament will have to deliberate on the matter once it is tabled before the legislature, and if it gives a go-ahead, it will do so through an adoption of a formal legislative process. Abongwe Kobogana, SABC News at Parliament.